story goes, Glenn asked engineers, get Katherine to check the numbers. And Katherine Johnson verified the computer's work by hand, giving Glenn reassurance that the math was solid. The rest, they say, is history. And I'll share another personal anecdote. So when the movie was coming out, we had a special showing down at the Virginia Air and Space Center in December. Let's see, that was 2016. And Katherine was there, Octavia Spencer, who was in the movie, played Dorothy Vaughan in the movie. A lot of people were there. Our administrator, Charlie Bolden, at the time was there. We were up in a little reception after the movie, and Charlie made a phone call and actually handed the phone to Katherine and said, "Hey, I've got somebody on the phone who wants to talk to you." It was John Glenn. It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, that was an amazing evening. Actually, John passed away not too long after that, so it was one of the last calls he made, and that was just the connection that they had. But some people say there are no second acts in American lives. That was a special moment in Katherine's life, but she went on to do many, many more things. For years, most people, including Katherine, didn't make a fuss about her historic contributions to America's early space program. She continued to work at Langley, doing the job she loved, with very little fanfare. She didn't seek the spotlight. That definitely was not her style. After those groundbreaking space missions, she contributed to aspects of the space shuttle and Earth Resources satellite program. She was involved in everything Langley was doing. I said I'd been there 38 years. Let's see, I started in 1980, and if I do my math correct, I think she retired in 1986. So we overlapped. Unfortunately, looking back, I never had a chance to interact with her personally during the time we overlapped, and that's something I certainly regret. But in her early career at Langley, she had done aeronautics work, calculating data for studies of wake vortex accidents and aircraft flight tests. By the late 1970s, she was doing aeronautics work again, providing math and computer programming support. America's journey to the stars began right here on these sand dunes on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And it just, if you think about it a second, that was 115 years ago. Just think of all the accomplishments that's happened in that 115 years, from air travel that is normal and routine now all across the globe, to landing on the moon, humans on the moon, several robotic landers on Mars. And I just think about, and I challenge you to think about, hey, when I probably won't be here, but maybe some of you are here for the 200th anniversary of the first flight. Think about the people that will be inducted into the hall here, and think about the accomplishments that will be made. And I know we have a lot of young people here. Y'all could be some of those, okay? As I said earlier, heroes come from unlikely places, so I'm sure some of the people we have in the audience, and I challenge all of y'all, when you're out talking to young people, go out and inspire them to do great things. They're the next generation who are going to do this. So since Katherine couldn't join us today in person, I want to leave you with a few of the words and a few phrases that illustrate her humanity and passion. She said all the time, "I loved every single day of it," describing her 33-year career at Langley. There wasn't one day I didn't wake up excited to go to work. Yes, I've heard her say that. So those are good words to live by. Get excited every day and go do something great. And Margaret Lee Shelley's book also tells of her personal motto, one that echoed one of her father's favorite sayings: "You are no better than anyone else, and no one is better than you." Those are words to live by as well. But if Katherine Johnson were here, I would tell her that she was, in fact, extraordinary. Through her skill, courage, and personal integrity, she set a standard we should all emulate. On behalf of all of us at NASA and the Langley Research Center, thank you so much for honoring Katherine in this special way. Thank you.
and honored guests gathered here for the very first time to honor two men whose vision and dreams had changed the world. On that day, the surviving brother, Orville Wright, was the guest of honor. There's very little doubt that anyone present that day in 1928 could have ever imagined the tremendous impact this humble event would have on the future events of the 20th century, or the wonder of flight as we see it today. But I believe one man did. Although he was not present that day in 1928, he predicted the future of aviation as if he had lived to see it all. His name was Wilbur Wright. 5 years after the first power flights at Kitty Hawk, in Paris, France, after Wilbur Wright had induced this technology to the Europeans and taught them to fly, at a banquet held in his honor on the evening of November the 5th, 1908, Wilbur Wright spoke these words to the members of the Aero Club of France. It is not really necessary to look too far into the future. We see enough already to be certain that it will be magnificent. Wilbur Wright spoke these words as he witnessed the rapid evolution of the greatest invention in the history of the world. He would never again return to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. 4 years after the speech in Paris, he fell ill with typhoid. And after a 4-week battle, he quietly slipped to the great beyond. The world has changed profoundly since 1903. Flight is now second nature to hundreds of millions of people, to the point where it's almost impossible for us to imagine the world without it. The fundamental principles discovered and developed by the Wright brothers laid the foundation for the first generation of flight to travel from Kitty Hawk to the moon in the lifetime of a human being. How many here remember that milestone event, first moon landing? Put your hands up. Maybe you can close your eyes for a few minutes. Go back 50 years ago, because it's kind of hard to believe that next year will be the 50th anniversary of that historic event. Just close your eyes and go back to that moment in time with loved ones that has long since passed away. We witnessed history, saw the impossible happen, and for just a moment, our imaginations wandered. At the end of that last flight, the machine was left unattended, and a gust of wind caught it and completely tore it all apart. The Kitty Hawk Flyer would never fly again. So far, this never-ending journey that began here 115 years ago has taken us from these lonely, wind-swept sands of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, to Tranquility Base on the lonely, windless surface of the moon. And we did it all in the lifetime of a human being.
Thank you.